Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast, and I'm your host, Chani Nicholas. All right, y'all. This week we have a full moon, and it is a full moon in Cancer, which means it's just extra emotional, extra sensitizing, extra nostalgic, and it says a lot about radical care and what that might mean for us individually and collectively. Cancer is the sign that knows how to care for and tend to the needs of anyone and everyone. It is the sign that feeds, that nourishes, that nurtures, and that fosters a kind of familial connection. So having a full moon in Cancer, which we do usually once a year, means that we are going to be more in tune with that part of ourselves, or that those parts of ourselves that have gone unattended to and have been lacking and that are needy will most likely be a little more pronounced or at the surface of things. And we're just coming off of the time of year where a lot of people are on holiday, or that there's like a collective experience of taking a break and resetting. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of media, a lot of movies, a lot of memes, a lot of posts about family and what that means. And there's this pressure for a lot of us to have a family at this time of year to be with. And that's just not everybody's experience. It's not everybody's reality. And a lot of people have to piece together families out of friendships and out of community, which, is what it is. And it's important to build that skill. But that doesn't mean that nostalgic feelings and old yearnings for family to be a certain kind of way don't resurface at this time, or haven't just, like you might be coming out of an experience of that. So this is a really great full moon to work with in regards to connecting with those parts of self, caring for those parts of self, being extremely cognizant of those aspects of self that have felt neglected, unwanted, alone, uncared for, or undeserving of protection. There's a real kind of protective element to Cancer. Obviously, it's the crab that has the shell, and it is the parent who nurtures and nourishes the child. And there is that feeling of needing to care for, nurture, and protect the parts of ourselves that haven't been. So if you want to think about this as the reparenting full moon, as the full moon that gives us that opportunity to do a little of the work that perhaps wasn't done for us when we were little, then that's a good way to spend the week. And, if you're coming out of a hibernation period, or if you're still very much in it, which I would suggest because Mars and Mercury are still very much retrograde. So this is a very slow beginning to the year. And the full moon in Cancer pulls focus on the need to be at home, or the need to feel safe, or the need to remember where and what is going to lend us a sense of security, and how to maybe even develop a secure attachment style to ourselves. Like if we didn't have a secure attachment to our parents, if we weren't sure about the caregivers in our life, and if we were going to get what we needed, this kind of astrology is like, oh, okay, well, the only person I can actually really honestly, securely attach to is myself at this point. So how do I foster that relationship and that connection and be the facilitator of at least some of the care that I need? Because when I do that, when I'm able to do some of that work for myself, I can actually show up much better to everybody else and to think about what radical care could look like in a communal sense. Much better because I'm practicing it internally, and then I have some kind of relationship with how it might be practiced externally. And just imagine if we lived in a world where everyone felt cared for. What would change? I think every single thing would change. I think if everyone felt valued and cared for, everything in our world would be different. And the way to plant seeds for radical care and communal care is a little bit at a time. It is about mutual aid practices. It is about skill sharing. It is about making sure everyone has the resources that they need. Those are big jobs. They're giant systemic shifts that we need to make. And any little addition to that, any little crack in the system where we can get in and demonstrate care for one another is a radical act, unfortunately. That is where we are at in this society. Caring for each other, or in this current day and age, caring for each other is still seen as something that is kind of radical. And I say that regarding this full moon because there's a really interesting kind of storm of events happening around this full moon. Right before the moon is full, so the full moon is the sun and moon in 180-degree opposition from each other. And right before they come into alignment, the sun makes a trine with Uranus, which is the planet of radical anything, which is the planet of change and innovation and updates. And a trine is a really helpful relationship. So the sun in Capricorn comes into a trine with Uranus, which is about utilizing the tools that we have at our disposal in a new and innovative or unique kind of way. And then as the moon comes into that opposition with the sun, it's also making it's a sextile that it makes, but it's still a really positive and helpful aspect. So that feeling of change and awakening and doing something differently is embedded in this full moon. And because the full moon's in Cancer and it's about care and nourishment, it's about doing that in a different, unique, and kind of maybe even radical way. And then what happens right after the full moon is Mercury is also in Capricorn, and Mercury and the sun come together, like exactly together. They make what we call a cazimi. And a cazimi is a moment of insight, and it is a moment of like getting downloads. And it is a moment that helps us to conceive of some really brilliant ideas. This cazimi also has that trine from Uranus because the sun and Mercury are so close together. And Mercury makes an exact trine to Uranus 2 days after the full moon. But it's all happening together and they're all talking to each other. So the full moon happens on Friday, the 6th of January at 3:08 p.m. Pacific time. And then the cazimi, Mercury and the sun's conjunction, happens on Saturday, January 7th. And then Mercury and Uranus make that trine to each other on the 8th. And I forgot to say, the sun makes the trine to Uranus on the 5th. So 5, 6, 7, 8th of January is this culmination of events that are all talking to each other and all talking about the same thing, which is an insight, a new way of seeing something, a new idea, and this thing coming to fullness, this full moon in Cancer, that is reminding us how to take care of ourselves and each other, and that care is our greatest currency. Really, truly. When we feel cared for and we feel loved and we feel like we have a home and we feel like we have a group of people, we act different. When we feel like people depend on us and we depend on them, and there is an interconnectivity and a reciprocity, and we're part of a unit, we act different in the world. And when we feel cared for, we're more likely to show up as more caring, loving human beings that really do want the best for each other. So it feels like this week is really focusing there. And because it's a full moon in Cancer, there's something really lovely about it. Yes, it could be like full of emotions and could help to make us even more sensitive than maybe we already are. But it's positive because the moon loves to be in Cancer. That's its home. So it has a real potent kind of nature to it. And the potency is around our ability to make home, make space, make cozy for each other, for ourselves. And because its main aspect is that trine with Uranus, it's about doing that in a way that really gets through. It's a breakthrough in some way, shape, or form. So may you feel a breakthrough in regards to the care that you are not only worthy of, but that is just your birthright. And then the only other thing that I haven't mentioned is that on January 2nd, before the full moon, Venus enters Aquarius, and on Wednesday makes a really lovely sextile with Jupiter. So the lead up to the full moon feels really like engaging and invigorating and exciting. It feels like it's really good for our relationships, and it's a very inspired moment. Jupiter loves wisdom and is the great teacher, and Venus in Aquarius falls in love with ideas and concepts and anything to do with the thinking realm. So it feels like it's a really lovely setup for being connected to something that is like broadening, that it helps us to see a bigger picture or to know something kind of beyond our own personal stories. And then the very personalized Cancer full moon gets us right in our feelings.
Thank y'all so much for leaving reviews in the App Store. It means the world to us. I wanted to share one with you titled Thank You by Josie Michelle. I've been using this app since it launched, and it's been a compassionate companion through some pretty rocky times. Checking in with the readings each week helps to ground me and orient me. It's like having a chat with a supportive and insightful friend. I love the approach of Chani and the team, who always hold the personal in balance with the collective, because really, they aren't separate things at all, and recognize that really none of us are free until we're all free. These are the tools we need to navigate these times. All right, y'all, that is the reading for the week. Let's remember Mercury's retrograde, Mars is retrograde, and a full moon in Cancer is just reminding us to begin the year slowly and with a great amount of nourishment and care. It's not a bad way to start a year. Sending you lots of love, many full moon blessings. Bye for now.